Welcome to Influencers TV. I'm Rachel Maines, and we have a great show lined up for you. Up first is Corner Cafe, sharing the story and heart of an artist, and I talk with artist Julie Elias. After that, David Cooper and John D. Young from Front Range Christian School are back in studio, and we discuss school safety. Then we have a special episode with Mike Treem, the station manager here, and he speaks with Dr. Kelly Sutton. They discuss her concerns with how the medical profession is going. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Corner Cafe.
About the things
I worship you only. Live to love, love to live.
And welcome to Corner Cafe. I am your host, Rachel Maines. And on the Corner Cafe, our artist that we're featuring is Julie. Hey, Julie, welcome to Corner Cafe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we love having you. And so your artist name is just Julie?
Julie Elias. I bet
Okay.
it's just me. I don't have a fun band or anything yet, but
Hey, there's plus and minuses to both. But I would assume then that you do all your writing, and have you co-written with people before?
I have before. A lot of people that I've met through the local churches. It's just really cool. Nowadays there's so many more resources and ways to connect with people. You don't have to do it in person. One thing we learned during COVID was we can do so much, just over the computers, over Zoom, that sort of thing.
Right.
And I love writing with other people. I love writing myself. In fact, my latest album, a lot of the songs were written by myself because they were written in COVID, in those times of loneliness and uncertainty that I know every single one of us faced.
Yes. So you made good use of the
Yes.
COVID time by writing.
Yes.
Well, that's great. And so your latest album is it Stampede? The latest
So the album's called The Dreamer, but my new song that's coming out is called Stampede, and that is shall we say, the penultimate COVID song, because it's about, all the anxiety that so many of us faced when the world that we knew was turned upside down. And I'm one of those people, I've always had so many things going on at one time. I like to be busy. I like to go. I have a full-time job. I've got my music ministry. And as an independent artist, if I'm not working for myself, nobody else is. And so when
Right.
COVID happened, I truly wondered if I was going to still have any future in music on the other side, because churches were closed. You couldn't go into venues, like everything had just shut down. And, with me, and I know you get this, being an artist yourself, when you lose any kind of momentum you have, it's so hard. It's so hard to rebuild.
Right.
And so I had that stress going on. I had the stress of some personal health stuff. I got COVID. I got it pretty bad. I mean, not as bad as some people, but I was sick for a long time. All my hair actually fell out. I got really ill, and
Wow.
I had to put down my dog, like my first dog I ever had. I couldn't go see my family. All my family lives out west, and I'm in Texas, and it was just like everything that could go wrong felt like it was going wrong. But it wasn't enough to totally put me over the edge, but it was enough to build me up to here. And that's how I got this idea for the song Stampede. So my saving grace during COVID was spending time with my horses. That was one thing, that we could do, was be outside. And, and I remember one time seeing them run down the hill. I thought it was because they loved me, but it was really because it was feeding time, if we're being honest. And, they were coming toward me. And then all of a sudden, as chaotic and crazy as it was when they were running toward me, then it just stopped. And here are these like huge animals that are suddenly peaceful and calm. And it made me feel like it was a perfect image for that anxiety, because it gets up and up and up into here. And then you're trying to gather your thoughts, but then all of a sudden everything just stops and would become clear. And that stopping happened was when I asked God to intervene, when I asked God to come rescue me. And it just was so cool how, I had these feelings, and, as a writer trying to find some cool way to describe it, because, everybody writes about hard times, but, seeing those horses run and just having that personal connection, I was like, God is there in the chaos. He is there when everything else seems like it's overwhelming. And one of the lines in the song is, God, keep my head held high above the stampede. Because sometimes you just need that little lift to get the big picture. And I know during COVID, I kind of wish I would have had that mindset from the beginning. But
yeah. Well, I'm so glad you look happy and healthy now, just going through challenging
Yeah, it was horrible.
Wow.
I had a fever over 100 for 10 days without any break. And finally on day 10, people like my boss and one of my friends here in Texas was like, go to the hospital. We can't drive you because we don't want to get sick. But get out of bed, drive yourself to the hospital. And that was a good thing. You know, they helped me get on some medicine but it was horrible. Yeah. All my hair fell out. I had some just long-term issues that I'm glad to say now, you know, a year and a half later have resolved, but man, it wasn't fun. And I know a lot of people had way worse experiences than even I did. And I'm so glad that I was able to still have some of that creativity, I guess, during that season. And like I said, so many of these songs on my new album, including that one Stampede, came out of that.
Wow. Well, you know what? God can turn terrible things into good things. And so I'm glad that you're remaining strong and positive and doing your thing called singing and songwriting. Real quick, describe your relationship with the Lord, how you I guess testimony. It's testimony time. Yeah. How you came to know him and how you decided, you know, I want to give this singing and songwriting and being an artist a try.
Well, it's a long story, and I know we don't have 3 hours, so I will try to condense it. But, you know, I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up going to church. But what's funny is when I was growing up, I sang in the church, but it was kind of because my mom made me. It was not something I was particularly passionate about. I always enjoyed it. But I was much more interested in acting. And so when I went to college, I went to the University of Colorado, which I believe you did too. So that's kind of fun.
I did.
We're buffs, which is great.
Go Buffs.
Yes. And so I did their musical theater program at CU, and you know got some you know training in music and everything. But it was really acting that I loved. So when I graduated, I said, well, if I'm going to try acting, I might as well go full bore. And I moved to Hollywood, because that's where you went. You know, I knew musical theater wasn't really going to be long-term for me because I wasn't a good dancer. So anyway, I could have been in Les Mis, but that's probably it. So I went to Hollywood and I tried that for a couple years, and it was really great. I had some good experiences. I got to be like on a couple different TV shows and movies, which was fun, and some student films. But I remember a couple years into it, you know, I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was criticizing my wrinkles, my eye bags, all that fun stuff. And I was only in my mid-20s. And it was a long time of just feeling beat up. You know, I would take a headshot, which I thought was the best picture of me ever made, and I'd send it to 200 different casting directors and agents, and not one would even call me back. And that was like this crazy kind of rejection I had never felt. And I thought I was strong enough. But after that, repeated over and over, I really began to doubt myself and said, you know, God, why did you make me this way? Why did you put this dream in my heart, but you made me look like this, that doesn't fit the mold of the little petite ingenue that Hollywood's wanting, or whatever it was that was keeping me from going to the next step. But I remember praying for the big picture, and instead of praying for the right agent or the right part, praying and asking God if this is actually what he wanted me to do. And I'd never done that before. And as soon as that happened, I got reacquainted with somebody I had known since I was 9 years old. I sang at a Christmas thing at the church. Our worship pastor just left, and my mom volunteered me, even though I was like 20-something years old. And I sang, and this person was there who was also in the industry. And he was like, I never knew you sang. And I said, oh, I don't. I'm an actress. And he's like, I don't know. Like, have you ever thought about singing? I'm like, no, not really. And he invited me to do a couple of concerts and stuff with him. And I remember at one of the concerts, somebody came up to me and talked about the song I was singing and how it reminded them of their daughter who had passed away. And it was a grown adult, and they were just dealing with it. And something about that song. And they said, I know God gave you that song to sing for me. And I was just like, I just felt more significance of my life in that 30-second conversation than I did in 3 years of Hollywood. And I said, I want more of that. And it was just so wild because, like I said, I've been praying for that big picture, and here God was slapping me in the face with something. And I said, you know what? I'll do it. You know, one of my biggest fears was not being that perfect Christian. I always thought, you know, the girls on stage were just no problems, perfect, always know what to do, quote scripture all the time. And I was like, well, I'm not really that person. Like, I have a great relationship with God, but I feel like he's my buddy, not my college professor. And I realized that that was okay too. And I started doing a lot with teenage girls, and I think they appreciated that authenticity. Like, you know, I might not be able to have a scripture for everything you're going through, but I'm here to listen and tell you how God was there in my life when I had those problems. And I just loved it. Like, the whole culmination of feeling like I could be my authentic self, could tell people about my real relationship with God and what that meant while creating music and singing and speaking. It was just so on a path that felt so much more secure than anything else I'd ever done.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, oftentimes, we can be insecure because we're trying to compare ourselves with others. And even in the Christian realm, you know, and I think a lot of people, sadly, and we're telling you, if you're listening and you're like, oh, well, I don't feel good enough, or I'm not the, you know, what you perceive as the perfect Christian person. Well, no one's perfect as a Christian. The whole point of being a Christian is to say we're not perfect, and we need Christ, all of us. And that's the point. But yeah, there is that perception. And I love that you have a heart then to help young ladies with all that, and you've been there, done that, and you can speak into, you know, being insecure and being in Hollywood, and then, you know, praying honestly to the Lord, like, is this what your will is? But then how cool is it that he can change your perspective and still use you in, you know, quote unquote entertainment, but even to a greater degree in that it's now worship music and you're giving glory and honor to him. So I love that story.
Yeah. I would rather, you know, at this point, like, especially COVID taught me this too, because I realized I was so much more grateful for all the opportunities that I had. I would rather sing for 100 people in church and have God use me and have it mean something than a stage of 10,000 people who were just waiting for me to see the main artist, you know. And just that feeling of really just being there and being present in what God has for me has been so huge. It's been a growing up lesson for me. And like, if you're listening to this, I just want you to say, no matter what season of your life you're in right now, if you're still here, God is not done with you. He is doing a new thing. He is making a way in the wilderness, and it's got your name on it. Like, there is something for you. So hang in there, continue to trust him, be expectant, see what he has for you, and you will never be disappointed.
Right. Amen. And another thing too, I was thinking of is, oftentimes, obviously, like the world, especially in our social media culture, it's all about numbers. Well, how many followers, and blah, 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 or how many people come to your concert, and blah, blah, blah. But see, God's kingdom is so much more opposite. So he's looking for value. And if he has purpose in his will for, and you're using your example, a church with 200, 500 people in which you're, you know, leading worship and guiding people in that versus, you know, maybe in our desire would be, you know, 10,000 person concert or whatever. Well, the thing of it is, and which is really interesting, which you've been through, going in his will towards whatever that may be, so much joy, so much fulfillment. If we were to divert and try to go over here and not be in his will with a 10,000 people concert or whatever, we don't have fulfillment. We're not fulfilled. So whatever he calls us to, I mean, and he could call you to 10,000 people in the future. I mean, it's just, try not to put him in a box and try not to have a perspective of how the world values things versus how the kingdom of heaven values things.
You're exactly right.
It's just a different shifting of the mind. And we're supposed to, as Christians, it says, renew your mind by the word, right? We shouldn't think, it says, be in the world, but not of the world. Completely opposite way of perceiving. And then once we realize, you know, the heavenly perspective and realize, man, our life here is so short, and forever we're going to be in his kingdom, it really helps us to stay on course.
Absolutely. No, that's so dead on. And it is so much about numbers now and appearances and what things look like. But, you know, just one thing I've had to learn is just how you measure your success. And if you say, hey, I'm only doing ministry if I have a #1 single and I'm singing at Passion in Atlanta with everybody who's anybody, well, then that's not really ministry, is it? Like if that's the only way you're measuring how God is using you, you are putting God in a box, exactly like what you said. So you have to, whether it's in music or whether it's in your workplace or your school or your classroom, you have to just say, hey, God, what do you want me to see today? What do you want me to be today? And be open to it and see what he does.
Amen. Yeah. And it's living a joy. It's not, you're never going to have problems. You're going to have trials.
Not at all.
Have trials for sure. But it's a joy through the trial. It's a peace through the turmoil. It's a gift to be in Christ and to be obedient to his will for us. So I love your heart. I love your story. I'm going to transition though real quick. We have our espresso question, which is express yourself. And the question is, Julie, okay, what is one ability that you believe everybody should possess? What is one ability that you believe everybody should possess?
I was figuring this would be like a light question, like, what's your favorite movie? But no, this is deep. I think the world would be a better place if everybody had empathy. If everybody was willing to put themselves in someone else's shoes before they make their judgments. I just think that would be huge. Everyone has a reason for believing what they believe, and you don't have to agree with it, but I think you need to respect them for it. So I think empathy. That's my quick answer. I'll probably think of something better at 2 a.m. But
well, that's a great one. I agree. And I hate to just out and about. And sometimes I'll say something, if someone's rude to somebody, maybe like you're out and about and at a work environment, or maybe the waitress or something. I hate when people are rude to people like that.
Oh, I hate it. I can't stand it.
Gets under my skin. I usually try to stand up to somebody who does that to somebody.
Good for you. And like, if we're trying to be like Jesus was the most empathetic person ever. So how can we talk about how great he is and how we want to, be like him and follow his teachings if we're going to be rude to, the person that brings us the wrong order? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's the small things really. It's a lot of people, and once again, talking about appearances, it's the small things that test your character rather than those quote unquote big things. Because the small things are the big things. How are we treating our people in the home, our family? They see us, they're around us all the time. How is our attitude there? As opposed to, okay, I'm on stage, I'm going to act happy, but then after my concert, I'm going to go, order a Starbucks and get mad at the barista.
Right. Okay. Exactly.
So, well, I've loved our conversation. We're going to be in touch in the future, and
I would love
that. Keep in touch with you and your music. And we're going to end the segment here with your song Stampede. Is there any more comments before we listen?
No, I just, I really appreciate the time. Thank you, everyone who's listening. I hope you listen to the song and enjoy it. And, if it means something to you, reach out, send me a note, send me an Instagram. One of the things I love most about what I do is connecting with people. So don't be a stranger. And thank you so much, Rachel, for having me on.
Thank you.
Cloud drawing near, the inevitable rising, the worry and the fear. I can't hold it back. The odds are stacked against me once again. It's too late to run, it has begun. Can't see when it's gonna end. But rose-colored glasses always prove me wrong. How can something weigh you down so much and still feel like a surge? It's not enough to change. I gotta pray I can face the thundering hurt.
Mirror, mirror on my screen, who's the fairest? I hope it's me. Feels so good when they believe it's really me. I need that dopamine. Can't keep this up, it's counterfeit love. No matter how much, it's never enough.
This little guy is self-sabotage, turns my heart against itself. So I'm letting go and telling it no. I know who satisfies my soul, not bowing down to this idol.
Lights off, I'm up in my bed. Fail the test I'm taking in my head. Doubting, asking how I did. Why can't I measure up? I built this wall I'm up against. Can't keep this up, it's counterfeit love. No matter how much, it's never enough.
This little guy is self-sabotage, turns my heart against itself. So I'm letting go and telling it no. I know who satisfies my soul, not bowing down to this idol. Not bowing down to this idol. Not bowing down to this idol. This little god, I'm done with it. This idol I've made, I'm tearing it down to the ground. I'll bury it down, down, down. This little god, I'm done with it. This idol I've made, I'm tearing it down to the ground. I'll bury it, I'll bury it. This little god, self-sabotage, turns my heart against itself. So I'm letting go, telling it no. I know who satisfies my soul, not bowing down to this idol. Not bowing down to this idol. Not bowing down to this idol.
You may not buy a ticket, but you can bet they're watching the show. So we don't gotta tell them, there's a lot they already know. It's in the words we say, and everything we do, the treasure that we chase, it's all the living proof. Yeah, it's like the curtain rises every time we walk in the room. So let your spotlight show everywhere I go. Let the way I live, let the whole world know you're center stage. Take center stage, 'cause it's showtime all the time. Come and take your place, Jesus, make your way to center stage. Lord, make your way, take center stage. take center stage. Let the spotlight show everywhere I go. Let the way I live, let the whole world know you're center stage. So let your spotlight show everywhere I go. Let the way I live, let the whole world know you're center stage. Take center stage. 'Cause it's showtime all the time. Come and take your place. Jesus, make your way to center stage. Lord, make your way. Take center stage. Lord, make your way. Take center stage.
When Jesus walked the earth 2,000 years ago, he had some pretty revolutionary ideas. Looking back on it, it's easy to side with him now. But if you'd been there, would you have been such a supporter?
Things that make you go, Your Crawford Broadcasting Company, God and Country Station.
Here are a few things for you to think about. Our money says, "In God we trust." Do you? We have freedom of religion, but do you take time to exercise it? We are one nation under God. If you don't love it, feel free to leave it. You can't pray in schools today, but you can pray for them. Hit your knees today. They can take prayer out of schools, but they can't remove God from our hearts. Just a few things to think about.
In the book of Job, we read about a man whose faith is put to the ultimate test. Job is struck with physical pain and ultimately loses everything, including his family. Yet his faith remains strong. How are you doing today with tests of your faith?
Things that make you go, Your Crawford Broadcasting Company, God and Country Station.
I've been loving this conversation with David Cooper and John D. Young, and they are back. And we're going to talk about safety in schools, which is huge.
It's a good topic.
I don't know why, and you guys are going to educate me on this, why we've had so many school shootings. It's a problem in our society, but parents are worried about this, and it's of concern, and especially maybe even a Christian school. Maybe you guys would be targeted even because of that reason. Sure. So let's talk about that and how you guys prepare the school and the kids for school safety.
Yeah, well, it is unfortunately a necessary focus for us.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I lament. I started teaching in 1982, part-time as an undergraduate, and now it's 42 years later.
Yeah, but whatever. Cooper's only 37 years old. Yeah, I don't know how this happened.
He's just like a child genius.
Started teaching in vitro. I was a prodigy. The most intelligent fetus ever. Yeah. But I've watched it shift.
Yeah.
And even my own mentality getting ready to go to school and my process is different than it used to be. But for us, we do all the practical things, right, that I think most schools that are serious about what they do have. We have security protocols. We've got electronic locks on doors. We have a security team on our campus. We've trained our teachers and all the drills and what you're supposed to do under this scenario and that scenario. But I think one of the best efforts that we've made as a school is our focus on mental health for kids. Mm-hmm. And we've done extensive training. All of our kids at the secondary level are trained in mental health first aid. So we actually teach them, if a kid starts talking about these topics or says these things, this is what you should do. It's not your burden to carry. But so we equip them, and this is the mental health first aid you do, and then you get them to someone who can really help. Much like we do with first aid, right?
Yeah.
Right.
First aid, I'm not the one that's going to do the surgery on John if he's injured. I just want to get him stable so I can get him to someone who knows what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so we train our kids. This is what you look for. These are the things. And when they're sad or you see them, don't try to carry it alone.
Right.
We've trained all of our teachers in that same thing. And so you go to our campus, we have these little stickers on windows that look like the lifesavers, so the rings you throw to people when they're drowning.
Right.
And if the kid sees that in a window, they know that teacher's trained. I can go them. That's a safe place.
Oh.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
It's and then we've created resource for all of our teachers and parents too. It's basically an online electronic flowchart that, I mean, you get in the midst of it, you're talking to someone, you forget your training. Well, this is a way to go on and say, I do this first, and then you click it tells you what to do and who to call and different resources available.
Right.
So in terms of safety, I think it begins there, right? How do we make sure kids feel safe emotionally and mentally? And then how do we equip the people around them to support them? Because if you can do that, you can head off a lot of foolish choices.
Right. Yeah, and kids, when you're going through school, you think, a week is forever, So it's like now as an adult, I feel like a year feels like a month. Yeah. But when you're a kid, it really does matter the emotions you're going through. Mm-hmm. And then also, I would imagine at a Christian school with the culture a bit different maybe than a public school, if somebody was getting picked on, because you hear those stories of the kids who get picked on. And like I said, that's just devastating. They can't see past, a week. Yeah. And so then they choose, if they can get a hold of a gun, then to go shoot some of their peers. Yes. So how do you address that too within the culture of the Christian school with how to treat your peers?
Yeah, well, and that's a part of some of that first aid training and trying to get kids to understand the difference between a challenge and a crisis, right? And then how do we respond to those things? Mm-hmm. And when we can do that, right? When I think back to when Denise Ramos rejected me in high school as I tried to ask her to homecoming in geometry class, and at that moment, that was just the lowest point of my life,
end
right?
Of the world.
And I was devastated, right?
Yeah.
It was the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was a crisis. Yep. And thankfully, I had some friends that let me know, you're just a dork. It's not a crisis. She just has better taste, and they corrected me. And I think that's a big issue for our kids because they've lacked some resiliency that hasn't been put in them. So things that used to be just challenges become crises to them. Right. And so getting them to understand the difference between them and equipping their friends with the right language of how do you walk them through that, as well as giving them the adults in their lives that can help them out. It makes a difference.
Right.
I think there's some nuances that can be considered too. Is like a lot of kids are like, I'm depressed, I'm going through depression. I'm like, maybe you're just sad about something, or maybe you're disappointed. Right. And we've collected, like you're saying, it's like these things are crises or challenges. But then if you look at some of the nuances, you're like, oh, you don't have anxiety, you're nervous, right? Being a performer, getting on stage, I got nervous. I didn't have anxiety, I just got nervous, and to to have the staff or the way you guys do it at Front Range is like, if we can educate and equip along the way, then it does. You kind of put a wet blanket on some of the things that rise up really ugly, and then you don't have those problems. Like you can't promise all those, but you actually have an opportunity to like, oh, it's not so bad. Right.
Yeah, and I think we also need to recognize that the world that our kids deal with is very different than the one that we dealt with. I was a nerdy kid, right? And not I wasn't a nerd like I was intelligent. I was a dork, right? And so getting picked on, I brought it on myself. But if there was any teasing, if there was any bullying, it ended when I left school. Right? I rode my bike home, I hung out at school, and I went home and had dinner and went to bed, right? Now it follows them everywhere because we've given
social
them
media.
We've been so foolish that we've put smartphones in the hands of children, right? And I say children, that they're 14-year-olds. Right. They shouldn't be having a smartphone. And now that bullying, that exposure, that relentless attack, it goes with them into their bedroom at night. And it never goes away. And so they are dealing with a different world, and it's much more complex. But certainly a big piece of it is we need to get them to understand the difference between, because depression's real and it's ugly, but there's a difference between being depressed and I'm just really sad about something. And we need to be able to get to that understanding. But so I think physical safety starts with that, and it has for us, but certainly demands of safety in school is bigger than that.
Right. So. I often thought if I was a teacher in today's world that I would want to get a concealed carry. And so with your staff and stuff, are they allowed to do that? How does that work?
Yeah, that's, I think, a very challenging position. At our school, we don't want teachers thinking they've got to carry a gun and take on the assailant. Right. Their job is to get their kids to safety and protect them. So we're moving forward with a lot of unique plans, and one of those is we're going to have non-lethal weapons in our classrooms.
Oh, great.
Because if you're going to have a teacher with a concealed carry and a lethal weapon, well, you better be investing a lot of time in training.
Yeah,
because
great point.
It's different than if you can go to a shooting range and shoot at a static target 25 feet, great. Get a small group. That's fantastic. It's really different when there's noise and chaos and your adrenaline is pumping, and now you've got to try to make decisions for other people's safety. So we don't want to put our teachers in that place. So we're going to give them means of protection that is non-lethal, and we're going to have individuals on our campus that are trained and we've invested in that can handle those situations and hopefully some lethal responses in those situations. But teachers armed in a classroom with lethal response, not sure it's the best idea.
Yeah. And I see that as you talk through that. And these individuals who are the people who would handle a situation like that are, they could be law enforcement or other people who are just trained in that?
Yes. Oh, yeah. They can be some of our own employees. We have law enforcement people that are part of our community. We have a group of dads on our campus, right?
Yeah, the dads are, that's cute.
They are on patrol at our campus. And all of those individuals, and when we talk about non-lethal weapons in the classroom, we're talking about Byrnas, which are actually, they launch projectiles. So it's not just standing back and, bear spray or something.
Yeah, it does hurt. It does hurt the assailant, but it doesn't kill them. Yeah,
that's right. And so you can take some action without worry, I guess, is a little bit too. So those people that are on our security teams are highly trained.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah. Any other measures? We talked about 3. Any other measures that you do in terms of school safety?
Well, I think a lot of it is education for our kids. We talk about drills. But we've got to equip the kids in what to do and how to think in those times. And when you do that, you get that kind of community response to it. And not that you don't want to instill fear, but you do want to equip them so that they have a confidence in what they're doing. And then it's a lot of other, we have signage up on our campus. We've got all sorts of cameras. I think every school does. And so there's a lot of those practical steps that we take to ensure safety of the kids on campus.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I've really enjoyed the conversation we've had. I'm going to have you guys back on the show and just continue the conversation of education and our Christian values. And
would love it.
Thank you for everything that you guys are doing with the school system and helping the kids. It's just so super important, as you know. We're raising up a generation to take the baton, and so this is something that we have to put energy into and we have to talk about.
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
Sounds good.
All right, well, stay tuned. We'll be back.
Love. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails.
Who is God to you? Who is God to us? Is he boring? Old? Irrelevant? Is he real? Is he powerful? We tell ourselves, God is nothing more than words on a page. His power isn't real. He's small, weak, and insignificant. He doesn't understand my daily struggle. To us, he's absent, lifeless, dead. Is this truly God's character? Is he weak? Is he absent? Does God still exist? Is he real? God is more. He is more than a line or a passage. His power is not confined to words penned by man. It's real. From his mouth, the universe came to be. He is more than talk. He is action. He is by our side. He understands our pain, our struggle. Mere words cannot describe the warmth of his embrace or the shelter that he brings. He is more.
It's Mike Twain with Crawford Media Group. We're here with Dr. Kelly Sutton. And Kelly, you're an MD that we got connected through some common friends talking about this whole issue of doctors being regulated, over-regulated. So thanks for taking the time with us.
Thank you, Mike. You phrased it perfectly. Because, well, the issue that I was over-regulated on was childhood vaccines. It's really not about vaccines. It's about the over-regulation. In brief, I was practicing medicine in California. I've practiced for almost 50 years and have never had a board complaint or hospital complaint against me until this. And then in 2015, California took away parents' freedom to choose not to give every vaccine to their children. And they said only doctors can make this decision. However, doctors have very broad choice in doing so. So a number of physicians, including myself, began providing medical exemptions for children who were at risk for vaccine injury from the childhood vaccines. And after a period of time, there started to be media stories about greedy doctors selling exemptions, and then we were investigated and disciplined. Of all the doctors I know who provided this evaluation of children who could be at risk of injury from vaccines, every single one of us has been disciplined. None of us has escaped discipline, even though we were following the letter of the law precisely. So I went through that, and that was accomplished in March of 2022. And a few months later, I heard that my license in Massachusetts, where I now live, was also being disciplined. And this is because of a principle in law called reciprocal discipline, in which one regulatory board in a state can simply copy the decision of a prior regulatory board as long as that decision was fair. And the Massachusetts Medical Board considered everything the California board did completely fair, no matter what I said, and they refused to do discovery, which is the exploration, allowing me to ask questions and uncover the illegal aspects of what happened in California. I've now also learned that the state of New York plans to discipline my license, and that hearing is coming up in October. The interesting thing about New York is I got my license there in 1982, 41 years ago, and I never used it. I was considering a job there. I never took the job, so I never practiced in New York. But the state is still considering spending taxpayer money. I must be that much of a risk that they want to spend taxpayer money to discipline me. But it's really what you said. The question is not vaccines, yes or no. The question is, as a doctor, is it my job to look at the patient in front of me and do what is best for that patient? Or do I see that patient as a person that I should persuade or force to do what the state wants them to do, to have the kind of exams they want, whether it's a physical exam, a test, a mammogram, a cholesterol, to have prescriptions, which could be statins, SSRIs, vaccines, or do I treat them as an individual? And this is the slippery slope we're on, because we get distracted to thinking, oh, well, we really have to have vaccines. And other people say, well, maybe not every person has to have vaccines. It's not about the vaccines. It's about, is a doctor free to take care of a patient fully and independently and in response to who that individual is and what the specific symptoms and life circumstance is for that patient? Or do I just say, oh, well, you are a combination of certain statistics. You are this gender, height, weight, blood pressure, ethnic background, geographic location. Therefore, I will give you these tests and these prescriptions. And I have, in a sense, never met you except as a statistic because I'm responding to what the state is asking me to do. There are systems of incentivization for doctors to do these things, and as long as they have a certain percentage of their practice on statins, with mammograms, with vaccines, then doctors are given more money. And we really need to get out of the system money as an incentive for doctors because it influences judgment. There's no way it cannot. And it's working against us. So the profession of medicine is on the brink. It's really almost non-existent if the state is the determiner of what doctors must do in face-to-face contact with their patients.
We're speaking with Dr. Kelly Sutton, MD, and we're talking about this government overreach. And Kelly, you'll be pleased to know that when my doctor prescribed statins, I said, no thanks. She wasn't very happy about it, but I said, we'll pass. Thanks.
She may have taken a notch lower evaluation of her competence.
That's amazing.
If she can't say this number of people are on statins, and maybe a financial recompense as well. I don't know.
Well, that's why we wanted to bring your story to our listeners, because Dr. Rachel Corbett got us connected. And this, I think some listeners might think, well, this is not going to affect me. And you can speak to that because we've seen it in our lives, myself and some of our staff, and it feels like this is, if we're not already there, and I think most people are really with their doctor, this is where we're headed.
We have to really demand the freedom of doctors, because doctors are, in a sense, a linchpin for controlling the entire population. People respect their doctor's opinion, and if we're all saying the same message, then the population is not receiving any version of truth. They're just receiving what is the narrative from the government. The pronouncement of what doctors should say is probably organized through the Federation of State Medical Boards, and that was founded in 1913, the same year that we got the IRS and the Federal Reserve. So somebody's been thinking for a long time how to centralize control of key aspects of our lives. And it's a sad wake-up call now, but it's a necessary one, that we really make up our own mind about things and have less trust for what we have considered reliable authorities in the past.
So, Kelly, a Denver area listener here's this interview. What can they do? What are some of the steps that they can take to support doctors having that freedom and to have that honest and transparent communication?
They can work in the political process by contacting their representative and senator and saying, what legislation does Colorado have to protect doctors' voices? I want my doctor to tell me the truth. What's happening? And is there any legislation that refuses to let doctors have independence of speech? And let their representatives know. The other thing is, when you go in with your doctor, take somebody with you, because having a witness, an extra pair of ears and eyes, is very important. And take some notes, and don't feel obligated to say yes to everything. It's usually older patients who are more obedient, and younger or middle-aged patients will ask more questions. Do your research, because I'm sad to say that today the medical practice is oriented almost entirely towards pharmaceuticals and procedures. You will not hear about worthwhile, healthy alternative treatments that are less toxic and should be tried first before we go to the more toxic conventional treatments. So you have to do your own research. A lot is on our shoulders today that we have to carry to avoid damage from the takeover that's happened in medicine.
It sounds like having a quality alternative doctor is so important. And we have such good ones in Denver and in Colorado. There's just no excuse. We have so many options.
Wonderful. Yes, it's like having a team. today we can't have one doctor that can do everything. You may have a primary care person who interfaces with the insurance and makes referrals to specialists. And then another person on that team is a holistic person who can look at the diagnoses and say, these are some treatment options you could consider. Here's lifestyle, here's diet, here's exercise, here's sense of purpose, and supplements or homeopathic remedies to see what of those would fit for your situation.
You know, Dr. Kelly, we're always amazed by the docs that will hear stories of a doctor telling a patient, well, supplements, they don't do anything. Or your lifestyle is not going to really change this, but we have this drug that might be able to help you. It's stunning to me, and we hear that over and over and over, and that's one of the things you're fighting against.
Exactly. In 1910, Rockefeller sponsored the Flexner evaluation of medical schools, and medicine prior to that time was eclectic. It included homeopathic medical schools, what were called regular medical schools, that are the existing allopathic schools of today, and then there were herbalists in each town. The regular doctors didn't do so well. They were among the others, but they weren't like the top of the heap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But with the Flexner report in 1910, I think 1,500 medical schools were shut down, so there was no homeopathic training left, and herbalists were considered unable to take care of people because they needed to have medical training. And we kind of got on this track of petro-based pharmaceuticals, which is where we are today.
You know, Dr. Kelly, as you mentioned, being able to go into a doctor, take notes, say no. We're so ingrained in many of us to say, okay, that's what he or she told me to do. That's what I need to do. And take that medication. Me take the statins, which I'm so thankful. I had great doctors like yourself telling me, don't do that. Don't do it. There are other ways. And lo and behold, there are other ways, because I've dropped my numbers by 20, 30 points just by doing the things that a great alternative doc would tell you to do.
Exactly. Oatmeal is great to lower cholesterol. And there's a specific bacteria called Lactobacillus reuteri, reuteri, and I think the number for it is 30242, the strain. And Life Extensions makes a product called Heart Assist that packages these bacteria, and you take one capsule twice a day, and it makes a significant drop in the LDL cholesterol. So why not use that first and see how much good you can accomplish? Oatmeal, 35 grams a day of fiber, and the Lactobacillus reuteri can go a long way for a lot of people.
That sounds so much better than reading the side effects of a statin and realizing, boy, some of those things come true. We're hearing the stories. And of course, we have great alternative docs that we get the ear of basically on the radio station, and they've helped us with that. Now, Kelly, before we run out of time, I want you to go back and talk about what people can do to take action. I think that's super important. Please.
Thank you. A wonderful group called Physicians and Patients Reclaiming Medicine is helping me and other doctors like myself to face in the legal court system the injustices that are being handed towards doctors, and when that happens to doctors, it happens to patients. Their website is reclaimingmed.org, and you can go to that website and put after that reclaimingmed.org/Dr. Sutton, Sutton, and you'll get my whole story and some other interviews and articles that have been written. And if you want to donate, which would be much appreciated, that would be the place to do it.
So give us that website again, if you would, real quick.
Yeah. reclaimingmed.org/Dr. Sutton.
Okay, and we'll have that information. If any of you missed it, please call us here at the station. I'll make sure that Charlene up front has that info. Dr. Kelly, thanks so much for taking the time for us. We want to check back in with you in a month or two and hear kind of how things are going, if that's okay with you.
Love to do that.
Okay, thank you.
All the best to everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Influencers TV. We want to remind you that we are listener supported, and it's pretty easy to give. All you have to do is go to our website, cornercaferadio.com, and click on the Donate tab. And before we leave you, we always want to remind you that the greatest impact you can have is an influence for Jesus Christ. Until next time.